Call the meeting to order. Roll call.
Ken Talbot.
Here.
Alan Easley.
Here.
Leon Griffith.
Here.
Helen Glass. Here. Jay Craddock.
Here.
Ronald Merrick.
Here.
Carol Yeaman.
Here.
All present.
Thank you.
All.
In your packet, well, you have the agenda on page 1. Are there any additions or changes to the agenda? If not, do I hear a motion to be approved?
So moved. Second.
Moved and seconded. All in favor of approving the agenda? Thank you. You also have the minutes of the meeting of March 14th. Any additions, corrections to the minutes? If not,
Move they be approved.
Second.
moved and seconded. All in favor of approving the minutes as written, raise your hand. Thank you. Old business?
I don't have any, Mr. Chairman.
And new business.
Next month, we have 2 cases, a tower and a solar site. The solar site will be in Gretna, proposed for Gretna, on Galveston Road, Taylor's Mill Road. The Moon family.
Okay. How big is it?
I think it's 50, 50 megawatts,
Okay.
around 700 acres.
Woo-hoo.
That's bigger than the one in Climax.
No.
That was 12.
1,500.
1,500 total.
1,200 of panels, 1,500 total.
There's something on that.
Okay, any other new business? If not, we'll proceed to the public hearing. Ladies and gentlemen, pursuant to Article 5, Division 7 of the Pittsylvania County Zoning Ordinance, we, the Board of Zoning Appeals, have been empowered to hear and decide specific applications and appeals in support of said ordinance. In accomplishing this important task, we're charged with promoting the health, safety, and general welfare of the citizens of Pittsylvania County. We must ensure that all our decisions and recommendations be directed to these goals so that each be consistent with the environment, the comprehensive plan, and in the best interest of Pittsylvania County, its citizens, and its posterity. Those wishing to address the board other than the applicant regarding zoning cases will be limited to 3 minutes. Okay. The hearing in case V-19-001 is now open. The time is 7:02. Report.
Case V19001, July Incorporated has petitioned for a variance of 25 feet to the required 35-foot setback on .84 of an acre on the Lotus Drive side of the property in the Callens-Gretna election district to allow for placement of a canopy over the existing gas pumps. The Planning Commission, with no opposition, recommended granting the petitioner's request. The staff summary is enclosed in the board packet. Mr. Chairman, Mr. Davis, Tim Davis is here to represent the petition.
Oh, please.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, covered a lot of your meetings when I was with the newspaper. I don't think I've ever been on this
Oh,
side.
yeah.
but,
I knew you were familiar.
I'm Director of Dealer Services for Davenport Energy. We supply gasoline to about 200 convenience stores. As a distributor for Exxon, Mobil, BP, Gulf, Citgo, and Marathon. And we've been a longtime supplier at this store, which is one stop there in Gretna on Route 40 at Lotus Drive. And we have an opportunity here to brand this store Marathon. But one of the qualifications to brand it is we have to put a second gas canopy over the gasoline pump on the right side if you're facing the store there next to Lotus Drive. Currently, that gasoline dispenser is uncovered. We do have one canopy there with a gasoline dispenser. But this one, in order to brand Marathon, we have to put a second canopy up. Mr. and Mrs. Patel, who are the property owners here, good business people. They've been in Gretna for a long time. I think a lot of people know them. They've made a lot of improvements inside the store. And we own the gasoline equipment, and we would like to now make some improvements outside on the property. A second canopy, obviously, in addition to branding, allowing us to brand it Marathon and put new gasoline dispensers in. And also the canopy would improve lighting. We feel it would improve the security of the store. It gives them an ability to compete with other branded locations in the area, of course, the Exxon across the street. To do that, we have to have the 25-foot variance to meet the property setback on the Lotus Drive side. So that's why we're here. And Mr. Wall is our Davenport Energy's president. I think he wanted to say a word.
I don't know that I could improve on what Tim just did. I think you missed your calling. Thanks for the opportunity to be before you, and thank you for your service to our county. Just a little bit of background. EMV became the propelling force of why all these dispensers have got to be replaced across America. And EMV is the European MasterCard Visa requirement that our country, our federal government adopted. And the idea is that we can reduce fraud and protect our citizens and customers from fraudulent behavior. Unfortunately, when they did this, it's created a pretty big investment on our part, or on the store owner's part, to be able to comply, which next year, the 2020 will be the outside, what we call the outside at the gas pump compliance. And we've been doing it. You've noticed, and if you go in the store now, you put your card in a machine, it reads the chip. That's EMV. We're going to be doing that now at the gas pump. And these new dispensers cost about $20,000 a piece. And you have to have a different POS system in the store to do that, and all the fun things that happen there. But so it's been very important for a company like ours, who's Pittsylvania County distributor products, to go into these ventures with partners. And our partners are the ones that Tim mentioned, the Marathons, in this case, the Exxons, and the big major oil companies who help co-op some of our investment and become our partner on technology to be able to comply. So this store has been unbranded, as we call it, forever. But these type of sites, almost country store type locations, which I would put this store as a country store in its grassroots when it started. They built them on small corners, 0.8 of an acre. They didn't foresee that gasoline would be consumed and delivered to customers in the way that we do it today. So hence the limitation we have with not having the proper setbacks to be able to do this. So we want to make a substantial investment in the property, and we think that it's good for the store owner. We think it's good for the community there, and it's good for us, no doubt. The other thing that, as Tim mentioned, most of us, if you buy gasoline at night, you're probably not inclined to go to a site where it's not very well lit. And at least I discourage my wife from doing that. When you're on that island, the canopy lights provide what we consider a nighttime safety component, particularly with the new LED lights that are out. They're very, very bright. So we also see this as the ability not only to comply with Marathon's requirements, to be a better delivery for the consumer, but also we think that there's a good safety compliance or component to this as well. So we appreciate your consideration in hearing our case, and I'm available to answer any questions.
When was that island put there? Do you have any idea?
It was before we got involved there. We got involved with that property, I think, in 2012 or 13. It was before that. I'm sorry, I don't know.
You'll hear a discussion about a variance and what it entails, and it's one of the hardest things that we do.
I'm sure.
One of the conditions that we might consider would be to say that island would never be moved any closer into the setback. Would you be willing to accept that?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. And I think there again, we didn't develop that site initially, but to get a building permit, the DOT requirements are pretty stiff So you can only be a certain number of feet from the right-of-way. I don't know that that's an issue with this island, but we'd have no problem. Would have no plans of ever changing that island.
Okay. Anybody else have questions for the applicant at this time?
I think so.
All right, thank you.
Yes, sir.
We'll may have some more questions later.
Thank you.
So, do we have any signups?
No, sir, Mr. Chairman.
All right, is there anyone that would like to address the board before we close the public hearing? If not, we'll close the hearing at 7:09. Now, just as we do these so infrequently, some of you may remember that for many years, there was a requirement in the state enabling legislation that the hardship on an applicant for a variance, it had to be a hardship that approached confiscation of the property. Now, that was relaxed 4 or 5 years ago. And the guidelines aren't that clear, but I think just as a suggestion, the primary thing we have to consider is this truly a variance, or is this a special, privilege that this applicant is asking for that we wouldn't be willing to give to another applicant in a similar situation, right? If those of you that took the certification course, you'll remember the expression maybe that the variance procedure is considered to be the leaking hole in the dike of zoning. So with that said,
Well, before we
you
get
got a
too,
variance.
before we get too far into the discussion about a variance, I was looking at the zoning ordinance, and in my opinion, they don't even need a variance to do what they're asking. So,
I agree.
but it should be looked at as a side yard setback, which has a 0-foot setback, and they should be able to just do it. But if we're gonna, since they're asking for a variance, I don't have any problem with giving them one, so.
I had the same, I already talked to Karen about it. I said, why are we here in this case? Because, number one, the front setback is toward, to me, West Gretna Road.
Right.
The side is on Lotus Road or whatever it is. There's no side setback on Lotus.
Right.
There's a canopy, which the zoning ordinance says accessory building or porch, or the principal structure. The
But-
canopy meets none of the three. And so, be that as it may, but if we do it, I mean, I don't see a problem. The pad's already there. You put a canopy on top of it and you go on home. I don't have a big deal about it. So,
Well, we're here because the zoning administrator determined that.
well, that's fine.
Well, that's,
that's
if,
fine.
like I say,
It was the assistant
Oh,
county
yeah.
administrator. I won't eat that
This
one.
is the most powerful person in the county.
well, that's why I would just make a motion, we approve the variance then, since that's what they're asking for. But-
Yeah.
But I really don't think they need
Well, let's
it.
get a little more details into the record in case somebody at some point does have.
Here's your definition of what the front of a lot is defined as. And on the corner lot, it says on corner lots, the front shall be construed to be the shortest boundary fronting on a street. And so the frontage on Route 40 is shorter than the frontage on Lotus, so Lotus would be the side setback, not the front setback.
All right. Now, well, that's, what we could do, the board could make a motion and approve it that no variance is required. If we pursue the variance, I think there's a lot of basis for issuing it. Number one, the islands have been there forever. I don't know if they predate zoning, which was 91, but I think they probably do.
I would think so.
So the fact that it's an established use, that they're not gonna move the pumps any closer to the road, we could probably justify issuing a variance if you feel like that's the proper route.
Well, since they paid for it, we ought to issue them.
Well, it doesn't hurt. The only thing issuing the variance, the only negative to it is, we hate to issue I say we, I speak, we the people, hate to issue variances because of the reason I cited before. They're considered and it's hard to differentiate, is this really a special privilege they're asking for, or is this truly a variance? But I think there's enough reason here, if we chose to issue a variance, we could, although that could come back to haunt us later when another applicant comes up and says, you gave them a variance.
Which is a question I would have is down the road, does a variance do detriment to this property? And I think that's something we need to address or think about and.
Or does it enhance, which is it?
Right.
But if we go strictly about the definition of the side setback for an intersection, and the main road is front, then, let's hear from the zoning administrator.
We treat them both as the right-of-way.
Okay,
In the 22 years I've been in zoning, it's 35 foot off the edge of the right-of-way. The side setbacks just speaks of residential and agricultural boundaries, not right-of-ways. So even on a residential lot, it has to be 35 foot off of each state-maintained road.
okay. That sounds reasonable.
Yeah.
I mean, I could see either position, but,
I've got a question for the applicant, if I could. All right. What's the height of the canopy going to be?
Yeah, and typically, the ones that are built today meet all the highway motor carrier standards, which 14 and a half feet would be standard. And as you may know, some of the original canopies built back in the day were 12 feet, and they were good targets for tractor trailers who came in to take a nap at 2 in the morning, and then they hit it and then they disappeared. But 14 and a half is minimum. There's a light, a lumen model that they run with the LEDs. We might could go a little higher if that was a concern.
14 and a half feet's a good clearance for them.
And that's
for a
true
tractor.
clearance. Yes, sir.
well, since it sounds as if the consensus might be that the outcome for the applicant is gonna be the same. He's gonna be able to build the canopy. Based upon the two definitions that I've heard, it seems to me we'd be better off continuing with the discussion for the variance. And, and letting the record show the reasons for which we chose to issue this variance, which might be different from the next application we get.
True.
So, I guess one way to do that, if meeting as the committee of the whole, if you feel like a positive motion is in order, we could consider the motion and wordsmith how we would word it. So
That's
we-
fine.
Okay. All right, so you've got the pattern motion in your packet. Board finds strict application would produce undue hardships not shared generally. And the authorization will not be a substantial detriment to adjacent property. Character of the district will not be changed by granting the variance. And I'm gonna put one more whereas in there. And we'll say whereas, the use predate, I can't say predates because we don't know the exact date of when that was built. Let's say the use has been established for, and this is not very precise, but for many years.
Many years. Can't beat them.
Many years, comma. All right, so this is what we would probably consider as a positive motion. Whereas UI Incorporated has petitioned the Board of Zoning Appeals for a variance to section 35-369, minimum yard dimensions, A, front setback of the Pittsylvania County zoning ordinance. And whereas the application does fulfill the minimum requirements for a variance from the provisions of the ordinance, and whereas the board finds that the strict application of the ordinance would produce undue hardship, that the hardship is not shared generally by other properties in the same zoning district and vicinity, that the authorization of the variance will not be of substantial detriment to adjacent property, and that the character of the district will not be changed by granting of the variance. And whereas the use has been established for many years, and whereas the condition or situation of the property concerned is not of so general or recurring a nature as to make reasonably practical the formulation of a general regulation to be adopted as an amendment to the ordinance, I move the variance be granted.
I'll make it motion.
All right, we have a motion. Is there
I'll
a second?
Second.
Moved and seconded. Is any further discussion on the motion? If not, all in favor signify by raising your hand. Thank you very much. Thanks for coming out. Is there a motion we adjourn?
So moved.